The views and opinions expressed on Smack My Pitch Up are those of the panelists and not those of GUI Network, their sponsors, or any of the properties mentioned. Listener discretion is advised. This podcast is rated R for violence, language, and nudity. Well, it's a podcast, so you won't see the nudity. I just do it to make the guest uncomfortable.
In a world gone mad with unnecessary reboots, remakes, and sequels, only one podcast has the guts to make it even worse. This is Smack My Pitch Up.
Hello, geeks, and welcome to another episode of Smack My Pitch Up, the podcast that reboots, remakes, reimagines, sequels, and sidequels, some of your favorite and least favorite properties from film, television, and what have you. And tonight, we definitely have a favorite, I wouldn't even say necessarily cult classic. It is a classic for fans of genre film, I would say.
That is very true. It's got a cult following. It does. It's just small. You know?
Yeah, I think this is one of those lost classics that I wouldn't even necessarily say it's a cult classic, but it is one of those that was able to reach a bigger market. It just doesn't have as much exposure as some of the classics of its era do.
Yeah.
This movie came out around the same time that, say, Back to the Future came out.
And it only made, I think, like 40 million in the theaters total. Maybe a little less than that.
So it's one of those films that as time has gone on, it's become more appreciated for what it is, and it really helps that some of the actors that were involved in it have become megastars. Some already having their cult classic status established by the time this movie came out, others becoming superstars after this movie came out. We're talking about 1985's Legend.
Yes.
It stars Tim Curry as basically the devil.
Yeah, he's the darkness.
The Dark Lord.
Yep.
And full currying in this as well. He's having so much fun in his role.
He's amazing as the darkness. I mean, that movie doesn't work without his performance.
And what's funny is there's so much prosthetic action happening with him.
Yeah.
But even with all those prosthesis things on his body, you can still see Tim Curry behind it.
Yes.
Because there's just the way he holds his mouth, his beats, the way he speaks are very much Tim Curry, and it translates through all of that prosthetic. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's so important that he was in that role, that he was really able to emote through all of that stuff.
Oh, he did it like a champ. I mean, I think he's, very stage, projecting and it's all about the body movement. And he's a master at that.
He is. And then there's also starring a very incredibly young Tom Cruise.
That was his first movie.
Was that his first movie?
I'm pretty sure Legend was his first movie. It's either that or it is The Outsiders.
Oh, The Outsiders, yeah. It's around that time.
They're around those two, yeah. It's either one.
But it's the only time I think that he's ever been cast as an innocent, quote unquote, in anything he's done.
Yeah, you could say that.
A couple years later is Risky Business, so I think this is
probably the most aloof character within that sort of fantasy setting, I will say.
It was a couple years after this, somebody was like, let me tell you about Thetans. And he was like, tell me more. So 1985's Legend, if you have not had a chance to check it out, definitely do so. I don't believe it's free on any of the streaming services, but it is cheap to rent if you don't already have a copy. So
yeah, it's $2.99, I think.
Yeah, take a look. It's very easy to track down, and for just the fun of a very high fantasy mid 80s movie starring Tim Curry as the devil, it's worth your time. Yeah. It's fun.
And you know what? As far as devils go and how they've ever been shown in cinema or TV or even in books, short of the actual Bible itself, he's the best. He is menacing. I'll tell you, I rewatched that before we did this, and he is so his acting's obviously superb, but he is so menacing in that.
Yeah,
I mean, it is, and just his little tantrums that he throws in there.
Oh yeah,
you know, like they don't, part of me wants to laugh because of the ridiculousness that is 1985. Also, the how well done it was. I'm just like, you know, bravo, sir. Like,
well, there's two different tones that are happening in this movie, which I found very amusing on a rewatch, because I can't say that I've watched this movie in the last, say, 20 years, and revisiting it as a full adult.
Yeah.
No chance of being called like young at this point in my age. I looked at where there's very goofy kid stuff that's happening with like the little goblins and stuff that are going around there. Yeah. Doink, and like weird noises, and it's very kiddie. And then Tim Curry, both going full Tim Curry and being operatic and big, but also menacing, and just putting all of this energy into this haunting devil character. These massive horns.
Yeah.
It's
with
so...
like you said, his movement, his wide arms would just get thrown out, like, you know, into the air when he speaks. And it was his hands were almost like he was holding the skull, like, you know, Mercutio sort of situation.
I just kind of looked at it like if there was a high school that did put on a high school version of Faust, and then one of the drama teachers would, like, somebody dropped out last second and they had to play like the devil character, and decided to just go full like off Broadway with it and go huge with it, and terrified the kids and the audience with just being too intense as the role.
Yes.
That's what Legend is that it's very kiddie. And then there's Tim Curry just fucking huge in this movie.
Yeah. And dark, which, you know, he is the darkness is actually his name. The Darkness.
There is some element of the 80s kids movies that has been lost over the years a little bit, that the 80s movies where he had like the Dark Crystal and Legend, and a lot of these kids movies that had a real, like, even Neverending Story had some pretty deeply dark moments in it.
Yes, and pretty disturbing, and probably most of that was just the 80s.
Yeah, I think that's just the 80s, where they're just like, fuck it, they'll be fine.
Yeah,
that's the attitude for the kids.
We're not worried. Go out till, you know, the sun goes down. We don't need to hear from you for 8 hours.
Yep, that was our era, is watching kids movies that would haunt an adult.
Yeah.
And
I mean, listen, my first horror movie was Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors, why it's my favorite. And
Poltergeist was PG. I mean, that's the era that
oh my God, it was, wasn't it?
Yeah. So that's the era that we're talking about. And Poltergeist fucks me up as an adult, and I've seen it like 30 times at this point.
Yes, it does. There's something about that practicality of just how it's produced and the makeup and all that, or the static on the TV, for example. You know, very, very simple device, static on the TV. We've all seen it. We've all grown up with it. Well, not now. Kids don't have no idea what fucking static on the TV
No
is.
shit, right? They're like, what? It should just be blank with just like channel or volume on the top.
Right, yeah. But eventually when shit runs out or you hit a channel that you can't get in, you get static. Sort of like, you know, the old channel 43 or whatever, porn channel with a scrambled channel. Like,
yeah, you want to try to explain that you had antenna on the top of your television when you were growing up. The kids are like a radio? And even then you're like, well, you know radio, so you're already ahead of the bunch.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, you've got that aspect of it.
Yeah.
But you don't know this pain.
It's like the antenna on a car.
Yeah.
Yep, just like that. But there were two of them, and they were on top of the television.
And that's kind of what amazing about this movie is that if that's Ridley Scott's first movie that he directed, I doubt it. But
no, because he had done Alien in the 70s.
Oh yeah,
then, yeah.
Duh.
So
sorry.
yeah, he had
Please
done.
forgive me, who's listening to this. I had a brain fart. You're right. Yeah. So I mean, he obviously knows action, but for him, that's a perfect example for him to go from that to that.
Yeah.
Which is this very like you said, in kiddie, like, oh, it's dreams, it's unicorns, and it's like lovely rivers
There's
and lakes.
fucking
And
unicorns are the crux of this storyline, is fucking two unicorns.
yeah, they have their head dicks stolen.
Yeah, that's the whole story of this. So
Yeah.
Before we continue on, I want to introduce my guest that is helping me out on this episode.
I am
it's
here.
helpful a little bit. From Geekfathers and a regular panelist on all the shows on the network. Been here since like the beginnings of GUI. We've got Kyle Smash here.
What's up, everybody?
What's up, bud?
Huh?
This is our first in-person Smack My Pitch Up.
I know.
Yay.
And we've vaxxed hugged earlier.
It was great.
Yes.
It was fantastic.
It's good. Another person's body.
Yay. I swear there's going to be so much dry humping when everybody's fully vaccinated. It's going to be great.
That many people won't be dry for very long.
Yeah, fair. And of course, I'm Mike the Hobbit, the host of Smack My Pitch Up. Definitely rate, review, and all the things you get your podcast from, and subscribe as well. All the info for the show and others on the GUI Network are at GUIPodcast.com. And let's get into the meat. So what I love about the original Legend movie is that, much like a lot of the movies that I loved as a kid, the basic premise of this is pretty fucking simple.
It's as simple as you get.
It's very much in that same line as like the original trilogy of Star Wars, where there's a light and a darkness, and there's a balance between the two. And the darkness is trying to upset the balance, and it's the light's responsibility to try to get that balance back in tow.
Right, yeah. In the movie, once the one of the unicorns is, I think one of them's killed, and the only one left is the horn stolen. And once the horn is stolen, it's almost like it knocked the spark out of life.
Yeah.
Because, like the sun is life, right? We don't have life without it. So it kind of knocks the spark out and it starts dying. Then you just have darkness.
Yeah, there's a big scroll at the beginning of the movie, which nowadays is kind of lazy. Back then, that was just pretty standard to have a scroll that just told you all the information about the universe. Where it's like, there's light and dark, and the unicorns are in charge of the light. And if they get their horns taken or they die, then the dark can take over. But the dark doesn't know how to find them, so they need an innocent to like center in on them as like bait. And that's what Tim Curry's doing. He's not a sweet transvestite anymore. He's Satan, and here you go. And then the movie.
Tim Curry doesn't do. He just acts. Like, he doesn't actually affect anything. He just acts. Like, all of his little minions do stuff, and he just sits in the background and just is cool.
No, he's like the early Marvel era Thanos, where Thanos doesn't do shit. He just sends his minions out to do stuff.
You just see a turn, maybe a smile.
He's like, go get me the unicorns. And they're like, yes, Tim Curry. And then they scurry off.
If we attack the unicorns, we court death.
Yeah, right.
Smile.
Smirk. Yeah, that's totally. So yeah, the premise isn't terribly complicated. There's two innocents that are one is Tom Cruise's character Jack, and the other is his love, Lily.
Unrequited. Most of the movie.
They make out a bit at the beginning.
I always saw it as like they weren't allowed to be together, so that's how they got together.
Well, at the beginning, it's that she has a ring. They make out a little, and then he's like, let me show you something cool. And at that point, in any modern movie, he'd pull his dick out. But instead, he takes her to like this pasture, and there's fucking unicorns running around, and she's
unsolicited dick.
Yeah, just fucking. And she's like, I don't. It's like it's a unicorn horn. Go ahead and rub it for good luck.
This helps give life,
right? No, instead he takes her to a pasture, and there's these two unicorns that are like, sup.
Yeah.
And they roll up, and he's like, you can't touch the unicorns. And she's like, no, but I want to touch the unicorns. And it's totally an homage to like Adam and Eve and the Garden of Eden kind of thing, where she's like, I want to touch unicorns. And like, no, it's forbidden. She's like, I'm going to fucking touch it anyway. You can't tell me what to do. All the women make money, independent women, and touches it anyway. And the unicorn's like, fuck you, you're a human, and run off. And then the evil is like, oh, we know where the unicorns are now. And then they chop off a fucking unicorn horn, and then they steal her because the devil's like, oh, she's all like innocent and fucking sexy, so I want to like do some stuff.
Yeah. Which shows you how evil he is. She's like, oh, her innocence makes me so hot. Like, wow, you really are. You're a dark motherfucker.
That's some like pervy pedophile
that's
type shit.
Dark and evil as
yeah,
in my opinion. So yeah, when I was watching, I guess unrequited, definitely not the right word. I would just maybe not allow, like, it's funny because in the movie they never break it down as to why. They just randomly meet up in the forest. But I think she's probably like royalty of some sort, and he's just a woodland little fucking kid that was raised by whatever the hell is in there.
Woodland Jack Reacher.
Yeah,
just rolling around.
Yeah, he's a woodland Jack. Yeah, he's just, instead of guns and martial arts, he's got his little.
I right the wrongs of the wood nymphs.
Right. Yeah. You stole his fruit. And also probably the worst acting he's ever done. Tom Cruise.
There's no acting that he's doing.
No,
here.
I don't even know if he barely doesn't really even have any lines.
No, he has barely any lines. He looks confused the whole time.
Yeah.
Which I think is because he had few lines and few directions. So they just like started filming and he was like, what do I do here? And he like looks to the left. They're like, cut. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Like,
okay. You're pretty. Shut the fuck up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just not a whole lot happening with his character. But he's not even really the main focus. Like the Lily is the main focus. He's just the one that ends up hanging out with all the exposition dwarves that show up, and they're just like, we got to go to do this thing and do this stuff, and that's what's going to happen, and doink, wee.
Well, the movie is a perfect example, especially the mentality of the 80s and before, of the heroine, and hero, like, oh my God, I was taken, I'm so sweet and innocent, and then I don't do anything, but then I was taken, and then I was taken over by the dark side. You showed up, you killed him, you saved me. It's very like Legend of Zelda, sort of, that sort of mentality.
And what's funny, like, even when him like saving the day at the end, he does a very minimal amount of saving the day. Like, she starts off the whole fucking rigmarole. The only thing that he does is that there's a point where she like is all gothed out. Like, the devil has, first thing he's like, your innocence is what makes me like really hot, and I want to fuck you because you're innocent. Goth clothes, and just puts her in fucking goth clothes.
Well,
like,
she dances with him for a while. Actually, why? After I saw the movie, we watched that scene, and the thing starts dancing, so she dances with it, and then she ends up inside of it. And if you look at the dress, it's pretty revealing. Like, it goes all the way down to her navel, and it opens up like on each side of like halfway through the breast. And I'm like, God damn, like, you really are a pervert. Like, you. And the thing is that the whole time, and just like all these stories, there's that subtext of like, no, I'm stronger than just being the damsel in distress. I'm battling the darkness in my mind and in my heart.
Yeah.
And all you got to do is show up and you what'd you do? Kick them into the void?
But I've also never understood that process of taking, like, there's an innocent, right? And then that's the reason why there's the draw from the evil, is like, they're so innocent, I want to corrupt them. But then pre-corruption, they're like, let me make you look as evil as possible, which seems like the opposite of the thing that they're attracted to. Like, they should be wearing like the Handmaid's Tale, like, red robe and the fucking hat and shit. And like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm so innocent, I don't understand sex. Like, that should be what the devil's just like, I'm fucking literally horned up right now.
Hey, modern times, she would have been, bitch, if that's true, you'd be wearing a top hat and a tuxedo. Why don't you dress like a man? All right.
Or like modern
You're wearing
times,
half pants and no shirt. Get it together.
Modern times wearing a Kirkland sweatshirt and some pajama bottoms.
I ordered you some shit from the LL Bean catalog.
But so Devil's just like, fucking let's get the evil queer eye for the straight guy in here and totally do a glow up on this innocent Lily here. She's got the fringe collar. She's got like eyeliner, lipstick, the whole fucking deal. There's spider leg like things draping off of everything. She's full gothed out, ready to roll, like super evil looking.
Black lipstick, all of it.
And then at the end, she has to like say like, oh, I'll totally like fuck you and like be your evil bride, but like let me kill the unicorn. And the one thing that Tom Cruise does is like not shoot her in the face with an arrow before she like chops the chain off of the unicorn.
Yes. Yeah.
He's like, no, I trust you. I'll always trust you. And then she like breaks free the unicorn. He's like, told you so. She's not evil. Haha, bitch. And the gnomes are like, all right, that's a weird flex, but all right.
If you notice, for a Ridley Scott movie, the action is a little dull. It's mostly dialogue and like pretty scenery. It really is. There's not a whole lot of. Now, there's a lot of great one-liners, which he's good at putting in his movies, obviously.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great shit talking, especially with like Screwball, which is like one of the good.
Yeah.
Dwarfs or trolls?
I think they're
nymphs.
Maybe nymphs, I think is the one. I don't know. They kind of like half-handedly mention what they are. There's like there's a fucking sprite, I think, at one point.
Yes, and she's jealous because she wants that Jack D.
Oh, Una. That's the character, Una.
Yeah, she wants the Jack D.
Wants Jack's dick so bad.
I mean, it's unbelievable. She actually gets mad and jealous.
She's like, I'll tell you how to do the thing, but you got to give me a kiss. And he kisses her on the cheek, and she's like, no, I want tongue, bitch. Yeah. Which was a very jarring turn of the dialogue there.
Right, yeah.
She's like, suck my tongue. And he's like, no, you are a 12-year-old child playing this role. I can't do that.
Hell hath no fury, right?
Like an Una scorned. Yeah.
Or a woman scorned by Sega.
Right. So basically, like, Jack is the be all end all. Like, everybody wants to fuck him except the chick that he wants to like bed. But she's like, dive to the bottom of this water to get my ring. And then you prove that you're like my dude. And he does. And then he gets trapped under the water because the darkness is coming because they touched a unicorn. The plot isn't very.
Plus, you know what? That's a fucking dick move. You did what? You threw your ring at the bottom of this raging water so I could, well, I wouldn't say raging, but semi-placid water so I can go all the way down to the bottom and find it in the soot.
It reminded me of when I was in high school, and like I'm not even going to give shit to the women that did this because they were trying to figure out their own shit at the same time as I was.
Nah.
We were all pubescent and trying to figure out like the roles of people and stuff, but they're like, I'm so tired. Can you get me a soda? And I'd be like, yes, I absolutely will. I will go get you a soda right now, and I'll bring it right back to you, Johnny on the spot, and come back and like, oh, thank you so much. This is such a good soda. I'd be like, oh, yes, so we can go out later. It's like, no, I'm actually going to date this dude that treats me like shit. I was like, nice guys finish last. But that's actually bullshit. What it was is that I was not confident at all. And it wasn't about being a bad dude or a good dude. Is that I was not interesting. I was a dude that was like running around. And that was Tom Cruise in this one. He was like, I'll jump to the bottom of a fucking lake for your ring. And she's like, okay, well, I'm going to go dance with fucking Tim Curry as the devil right now.
Yeah.
Because that's way
He's
more
the
interesting.
bad boy.
Yeah.
Well, I will say that he didn't have a lot of options, maybe, except for that one magical what was her name? Una.
But Una was basically like the cat girl in your high school that just like wore the cat ears all the time. It was just like really fucking weird.
He was the Peter Pan and she was the Tinkerbell.
She was Tinkerbell. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Like that's sort of the more modernized, I guess, relationship of them done in the 80s. Ridley Scott knew what was up.
Yeah. Ridley Scott's like, one day they're going to do this, but it's going to be Robin Williams and Julia Roberts.
Yeah. I wonder how that would work. Does she get to normal size? Is it how tight?
Do you think, like, what's the thing where you stick a rod in your dick? Was it sounding? I think it's called.
Oh.
But it's just like Una holding on to the edge of like a pen. I mean, like,
I think she would
look
just
out
like
below.
she would just flap her wings really quickly in the nutsack and
then good to go.
Good to go.
Good to go.
Yeah, she's like, I'll be cleaning this out of my wings for a week.
Right.
Okay.
This is already a fucking mess. This is the problem of coming over and like hanging out, like couple hangs before doing this.
A few beers
in. Yeah.
Okay.
So I do want to get into like how we're going to change the plot for those unfamiliar with how we do this normally, about 10 minutes before this, where we, do our real take on our reboot, remix, reimagining, and our remake, reimagining, and then we do our remix, which is just like a wide open, outside the box take on how to do a version of this story.
Yeah,
and this story,
Mr. Show those shit
because it's so vague in its plot. It's pretty much point A to point B kind of situation. There's a lot of room to kind of fill it in with our own ideas and stuff. So
we're gonna fill it in.
Oh yeah, just like. Like a pixie on the end of a sounding rod. We're gonna fill it in nice, flap our wings a bit,
just like the wings of Una.
The wings of Una. Yes,
fill it all in.
So for your real take version, are you doing a straight up like high fantasy? Are you doing it as a different type of tone? What are you approaching this?
So
as?
my serious version, I guess, is the best way to put it. My non joking version,
sure,
is actually set in sort of a similar, so it doesn't look exactly like that aesthetically,
sure,
but it's set in a similar world. It just happens to be a fantasy world in that nature, almost like Lord of the Rings incorporated with a city environment.
Okay.
So depending on what alley you go down is a completely different part. It's not like when you go down a city and you go down one alley, you go down the other, and like, yeah, I saw some brick and I saw some windows. Like you go down one alley, it is its own realm. It's almost like a pocket of realms within that city environment. So you have to know where you're going to get to where you want to be.
So it's like, oh, this is Goblin Town. We got to turn around. Right. We're going to get our wallets
Which
stolen.
makes it much more difficult for Jack to find Lily and the unicorn horn and all that. Some in my real version it's a unicorn horn because within those pocket realms there are infinite possibilities, and it just happens to be within that infinite possibility is the one realm that holds the spark for life.
Sure. Okay. So you are doing high fantasy but with a little bit more of a little more infrastructure in the
modernized in the aesthetics.
Okay.
So if the movie starts, it will start painting on a city. Depending on what that city looks like, but it's a city, but it's surrounded by a forest.
Okay.
Right? So it's almost like its own civilization within that forest.
Sure.
Very,
Gotcha.
Aztecian sort of situation.
Okay. Gotcha.
But within that city, instead of having, to any outsider coming in, would be stores and things like that. But within these gateways throughout the city, because it's a grid, are different portals to different pockets, all part of the whole, but separate in their own right.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that's how they all exist, is they're connected with that city.
Okay. I gotcha. Nice.
Almost like a Dark Tower, sort of how
Sure.
that
yeah.
whole, you know what I mean? There's that one,
Center piece
to it all. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I like that. Mine, I look back into kind of the different types of fantasy movies out there, and the ones. Well, first off, I think the reason I chose this version of a fantasy movie is because high concept fantasy is incredibly challenging and delicate and complicated, and to be able to pull it off properly is masterclass.
Yeah.
And to the point where, like, the idea that there are 3 out of 6 Lord of the Rings movies that are good, that alone is like, you know what? I even gave like a pass on the Hobbit movies because they did Lord of the Rings so well.
Yeah.
That I'm like, that's really challenging. And that's why there's so few above board fantasy movies that are like just incredible. Like there's Labyrinth, there's Lord of the Rings, there's some, but there's not nearly as many as there are sci-fi or horror, because it's a very challenging element to transport people the right way. What I've come to love with fantasy are the movies where they have a real life story being told, both through the reality of the situation and then the lens of fantasy, oftentimes through the eyes of a child or something. So you've got like Bridge to Terabithia, you've got Pan's Labyrinth, you've got Neverending Story, Zathura. You've got these movies that there are real life reality challenges that kids are going through, and then there's like a lens of fantasy that is kind of being put over top of that reality. And I thought, how would this story look if there was a real life situation with real, like, in reality kids that, because of their overactive imaginations, because of like them maybe preventing themselves from seeing the real, even darker villainy of the real world, putting a kind of creative lens over top of it to deal with the situation, which is oftentimes the vehicle used for those types of movies. So that's what I'm going with, is that this is a real life situation that are hitting the same beats as Legend. And then the story of Legend is not only something that is mentioned as like a book at the beginning, like Neverending Story style, but then that kind of translates as a lens over top of the reality of the situation. So all the characters are still there.
Like a commentary on the real world going on, in a sense.
Sort of. It's showing that even as dark as the darkness as Tim Curry's character is in Legend, it doesn't compare to the darkness of the human soul at points.
Right.
And to show how even a fantasy devil could be the better option than the reality of the situation.
Right.
I thought would be an interesting concept. So that's where I'm going with this one.
And that's, I love that, because throughout history, that's what a lot of civilizations do.
Mm-hmm.
They take the evil of mankind. There's good, and they put that into a visual form as well. They kind of put it all together into this one form, and this is what the evil part of us looks like.
Yeah.
And this is what the good part of us looks like.
Sure.
Who we want to be and who we want to stray from, sort of thing. I like that. That's pretty cool.
So for your version, this more city-based nexus, I guess, of this fantasy realm, do you have a director? Do you have like a tone that you're going with this?
I do. So in my serious version, the director, I always kind of come back to him because I think he really does sort of that dark and light balance really well, is Tim Miller. And usually I would probably go for the more funny version, which, Deadpool.
Yeah.
Right. But what I really, and I've watched both Deadpool movies tons of times, and I know he's done a few other things. The one great thing about those movies is not just the comedy, because yes, it's comedy and it's gory, is visually it's really well done.
Sure.
But the balance in between that funny, that dark, and the human emotion that actually kind of makes you tie into it from a more real standpoint, He's got that shit down.
Nice.
He's really good at that. So, and he's good with the sort of, I think of when he's directing the action that's going on within these pocket universes, but attached to the city and how it's all going to bleed out. I think he's going to do that I think he would do that really well from a visual standpoint.
Okay.
But from a storytelling standpoint, he knows how to edit it, put that out there as that good balance.
Yeah.
And I wanted to have that in there because you have Jack, who's good, right? He's a good kid. But then you have Lily, who's very innocent. The thing with innocence versus good is good has experience. In this story, good has experience. Jack he's kind of lived a rough life, and he's kind of that Aladdin street kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
But within that city, but knows these different realms because that's what he does. He goes around and he just kind of, he's a vagabond by nature.
Yeah.
And a traveler. And Lily is this innocent who's had a very closed off world, right? Those are the ones more susceptible to the darkness because they haven't learned to put up those borders to protect themselves from such dark things.
So Jack is one that he's maintained his innocence just out of sheer will.
Yeah.
Having seen the reality of the world.
Basically being a street kid.
Yeah. And then you've got Lily, who has maintained her innocence because she hasn't been exposed to the darkness of the world.
Right. And if you shoot it in real time, I picture her as being that, like, my mom made me do ballet. My dad does this and that probably in politics.
Sure.
So she doesn't like him very much because he's got that dual personality.
Sure.
And that's, I picture her in that sort of princess situation where you are so protected and you've never wanted for anything. So you are innocent because you don't treat people badly. You don't see them as less than you. Maybe your parents do, but your innocence comes from your ability to see the good in everything until you've seen the bad where it's overwhelming. And then how do you come back from that? So from a serious standpoint, I think he would do that really well.
Okay. I definitely see that. The idea of just like a character that's innocent based entirely on their isolation.
Right.
They're insulated from the world. They don't have the opportunity to learn that people aren't necessarily inherently good. It takes like will to maintain that goodness. And she has maintained that goodness because she hasn't had any real strife in her life.
Right. So when it hits her, how does she deal with that? Like, does she dance with the dress?
Right.
Which is dancing with your own dark side.
Yeah.
Essentially. Or in this sort of modern world, is she seeing the realities of her actual life and what it takes to have that life? What kind of compromises what kind of darkness did you let set in?
Sure.
So we can have certain things, or I can, you know what I mean? So I really like that aspect. And so the few people I've got picked out, and you're going to like, I think you're going to
let's go down the laundry list here.
Yeah. Well, I'll go the serious version.
Yep.
Jack, I did, I say if I pronounce his name right, Timothy Chalamet, I think is Chalamet, excuse me, who's was in Call Me by Your Name and Lady Bird.
He's incredible.
Yeah.
And he's a challenge I want to put him in everything that we do on the show because he's just such a charming, but also not Vince Vaughn awkward, but more that like there's a youthful awkwardness to him.
Yeah.
That is charming.
Right.
It's not dorky or goofy. It's this like natural.
Yeah. It's
youthful,
not a Jay Baruchel.
No. It's a very youthful. Okay. All right. Lay off Baruchel. It comes off as a very honest, youthful awkwardness.
Yes. And I think, in terms of playing the street kid who's kind of jumping in between these realms and making all these connections, while maintaining his goodness.
Yeah.
I think he's a damn good actor. I think he could do that very well.
He'll also be in Dune.
That's
coming
right.
out later this year.
Along with Zendaya and
basically everyone in Hollywood. Yeah. There's everyone is in that movie.
For Lily, and just because as of recently been on a Stranger Things season 4.
Yeah.
And watching, they had a new promo come out. My daughter loves her too. Millie Bobby Brown.
And she has proven herself as being more than just 11. She's done other stuff and even something as goofy as like Godzilla, she's bringing the action, but she did like Enola Holmes as well.
Oh, fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
Everybody in that movie is fantastic.
No, she's got a career path ahead of her.
Oh, she's good.
Yeah.
As long as she doesn't turn into a massive asshole, which, as Bill Murray says, you have about 2 years, and then you get out of it or you stay like that.
Yeah.
So, I guess kid stars are different. I have her as Lily. Now, I'll go to Screwball first, and then I'll tell you the darkness. So,
sure.
Screwball I have as Peter Dinklage.
Okay.
And Screwball in the movie, if you haven't watched it, but when you do, and you should, Screwball is exactly like his name sounds. He is that smart ass, almost comic relief, one-liner, sort of thing. Where it's like, if you get hit, one of the characters in the movie gets hit in the air with the head, and he's like, that thing almost, hit me in the brain pan. He's just like, at least you'll be okay. Like if it hits you in the head. Like he's a smart ass. He's very Deadpoolish in terms of his smart aleck talk, which for Tim Miller would be very easy for him to incorporate that humor in between that sort of innocence and darkness thing.
Yeah.
Now, for my serious version, and this is going to sound weird,
okay,
because I actually switched it from my comic version.
I did a couple switch arounds on my casting as well.
I kept going, but he would be so good in this. And the thing with Jim Carrey is that, yes, comedic, great, but his dramatic acting is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is a beautiful film.
And though it's comedic, his work on Man on the Moon is incredible.
Yeah, or The Truman Show.
Or Truman Show as well, yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, and when I put that in perspective, I put him as the darkness.
Okay. And well, he can go big for sure.
Well, and that's the thing is that he could go big. He can go very like Lemony Snicket's sort of big, but he also can keep that balance, especially in makeup. I think he could keep that balance as the darkness, and he would. I picture Tim Miller having him come in as a human form, at first, and probably in a high political, probably like a mayor of the city. He doesn't have access to these realms, especially the one with the unicorns in, but he does kind of run the show from that aspect. So that's his ultimate goal, is to get there and do that. And he had to rise to post. So I see Jim Carrey in a role like that, and seeing him interact with like Millie Bobby Brown, or Timothy, how do you pronounce it again? Chalamet, or Peter Dinklage. I think it would be dynamic. It would be funny, but it would be dark, and it would be serious in tone, and the way it's shot. This maybe sort of like drowned out colors in certain shots, not necessarily darkness, but then in the sort of pretty, I'm in this realm, forest realm, nymph sort of thing. It would be almost like Lord of the Rings-ish.
Okay, I got you. So there's like a harshness to the shooting style at some points, and then there's almost a contrasting like tone at different points. Yeah.
You're going from a light to dark, and you can tell that tone depending on where you are. And of course, in the city, the light's artificial because it's being run by, it's being run by somebody who's putting a artificial sort of blanket over the city in terms of how they run it.
Yeah.
But the realms themselves are their own beauty, and so I think from a serious perspective, it would be cool.
I like that the city would almost have kind of a dingy, desaturated quality to
Gotham
it.
sort of vibe.
Yeah. Okay, I like that a lot. And then so the contrast, it's almost like the Wizard of Oz switch over to
exactly.
Yeah,
which makes Jack's character and why Lily's so protected make more sense. Why Jack's character living in that world, being a street kid, but still holding on to his goodness, makes him that better of a character.
Yeah, I like that. For me, I am having that contrast as well, but it's because there's this lens of fantasy that's over the reality of the world, and I'm doing that like Book of Eli, like yellows and bleached out kind of tone to the reality of the world, and that's because the majority of this movie is set in the American Southwest.
Huh.
And to break down the plot on my real take is that for my director, I am going with a director that was known for an incredible film that incorporated fantasy elements into a real life, like ominous situation of the levees breaking in New Orleans, Beasts of the Southern Wild, which was an incredible film, and recently did his take on the Peter Pan mythos with a movie called Wendy that is currently on HBO.
I have not seen that.
It's on HBO Max currently, and it's basically street kids that jump a train. They end up on this island, and they're just running amok, and there's ne'er-do-well, basically pirates that they're using the island for other means. And so there's a realistic nature to it, but it still follows that Peter Pan mythos at the same time. That's kind of the lens of the childlike wonderment that is put on the film, where you're still noting all the beats of the reality of the situation. It's similar to Beasts of the Southern Wild in that way, that the reality of it is really the base of the film, but there's these fantasy lenses that get thrown over top of sequences that informs you kind of the perspective of the children involved in the story.
Right.
So I really like that. It's Ben Zeitlin is the name of the director.
I don't know if I know him.
Hasn't done a lot, honestly, and has done a couple music videos, has made the two big claims to fame are Beasts of the Southern Wild, and then more recently, I think 2 years ago, was Wendy, came out. And I really like that is such a focus of this director, is that style of filmmaking and kid-focused. And with a story like this, I think you have to have a little bit of that like childlike lens to properly portray this very contrasting good and evil conversation that's happening, because when you become an adult, you realize that most everything is in the gray.
Yeah.
And there are definitely true good and true evil in the world.
Sure.
And we see them every day in Congress, and it's mostly evil, but but you do see examples of, like, Dolly Parton is just pure good, just pure wonderful.
I
good.
do love that woman.
I adore her to no end. She is a fucking saint. And then on the other end, Ted Cruz. And so you have like two contrasting ends, but like for the most part, everything else is kind of gray.
Yeah.
And it's that childlike lens that makes it less complicated.
Mm-hmm.
And I want that to be expressed through this lens that Ben Zeitlin has done with his films. And so a breakdown of all the characters. I'll do the Lord of Darkness last, but for Jack, this American Southwest, it's taking place on a ranch that's on its last legs. The unicorns are actually a pair of rare horses that they're trying to breed as a means of trying to save the ranch.
Mm-hmm.
The last bit of money that they have left is in getting these two together to try to breed racehorses, thoroughbreds, to do racing, and they kind of put all their eggs in that basket. There are farm hands, or ranch hands that are helping out the main character. Jack is the son of the ranch owner, and he's grown up around, immigrant ranch hands and just like Dust Bowl ranchers that are also struggling with their own ranches. And so there is no real difference in the way that they look at each other as far as him being the son of the ranch hand or, an immigrant worker's kid. They've all grown up together. They've all played together. They're, in their perception, equals. But there's this like nefarious kind of cultural difference that happens when it gets past the child age.
Yeah.
That they're running into. The Lord of Darkness being a developer that has the deed to the farm, that is doing everything to try to like ruin their possibilities of holding on to this, because there's massive tracts. He's buying out farms around the whole area. That whole trope that's been used time and time again. So Jack is the rancher's son in this, and he's going to be played by, and I'm probably going to butcher the first name, Zolo Marduena.
Oh yeah, from Cobra Kai.
Cobra Kai, Miguel from Cobra Kai. Incredible actor. He's like barely an adult in this. He's trying to come into his own, trying to be a man, but he's also just a dorky kid still.
I think he can do the action too.
He can totally do the action.
Yeah.
And great actor.
He's awesome.
He has
everybody in that show is so good.
Well, there's some that are stronger and weaker as far as acting talent goes, but
yeah,
it is campy enough.
LaRusso.
Yeah, no shit, right?
But he's still him.
But I think he's a great actor. I think he's got a lot of potential as far as a career moving forward, and I would love to see him in this role because he can also play like the goofy kid vibe as well.
Yeah, and then the tough, and then the strong,
tough when he needs to. So I think that's a great place for him to be in. And then for Lily, I wanted to call back to actually the actress that was the youngest nominated actress in Oscar history for her role in Beasts of the Southern Wild. She was like 8 or something when she was in that role.
What was her name?
Covenzane, I think, Wallace. She was in Beasts of the Southern Wild. She was also Annie in the Annie remake.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Actually, that wasn't. I'm not an Annie fan, but I watched it with my with my kid. It actually was pretty good.
Yeah, and I mean, she great act. I mean, obviously, she's getting nominated at like 8 years old.
Jamie Foxx was in that too.
Yeah, he was Warbucks.
Yeah, that wasn't. He was good.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. As far as like,
I'm not an Annie fan.
Well, and as far as clear money grab remakes, that is definitely not the worst of those that have come out.
No, I don't think so. I thought it was pretty good.
Incredible actress, and I think seeing her as a like young adult, like she's an adult now, and age-wise, I think she's like 22 or 23, so she's right in that age range of like
she can play
post-teens. She can play a couple years younger. It's fine. And she's around the same age as Zolo.
Zolo.
Yeah. So they are the right age for one another. She is just a orphan child that got taken in by a nearby farm. And they kind of half grew up together and then got closer as years went and as they got closer. And so there's this like restricted love that they have where it's not that they aren't allowed to be together, but because the families are so close, there's a carefulness they got to be. They clearly show each other, but there's a point where there's so much hesitance on both ends to really like pull the trigger on it.
All right.
And then let me go through because we are running long on this already.
Are we?
Then we've got Gump, who is it's a little kid that plays like an elf character.
Yeah.
In this, that ends up being kind of the Sherpa through the voyage to rescue the unicorn, recover the horn, fight off darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And so you want like an innocent, youthful character in this role that I am now with all these elf-like characters. They're going to be like either like immigrant kids or like kids of other farm hands or like ranch owners in the area. The kids that they've all kind of grown up together, and there's a varying level of age from like 14-year-old kids, 12-year-old kids to like 19, 20, 21-year-old kids that there's no one else around to play with. So they're just the kids in the area.
Yeah.
So there's this slightly bigger range of people you hang out with than you would in, say, a city. And Wyatt Olaf is who I went with for Gump. If you're unfamiliar, he played Stanley in It. He was the young Peter Quill in Guardians of the Galaxy. And if you really want to see him having more time and play in his roles, there's a great series on Netflix called I'm Not Okay With This.
I've seen it's on my list. I have not watched it yet, but I've heard really good things.
He's like a kind of love interest in that, and he's got comedic timing. He can really like exist in that like cool but kind of awkward character role. So he, I think, would be great as Gump. And also as Screwball, he could probably pull that off as well, honestly.
He could.
And then we've got Una, who's the younger kid that's definitely too young for Jack in this role. And that's why there's like no, you're a child. But
right.
Huge crush on him.
Right.
Kind of character that comes along, is like 12 years old. He's like, no, fucking no.
Yeah. But if you're around at 21.
Yeah, right. New actress that is coming out and really doing some stuff, even though the roles that I'm about to mention aren't great movies for the most part.
Uh-huh.
But she is great in them. She played Dora in Dora, the Lost City of Gold, the live action Dora the Explorer movie. She also was in Instant Family and Transformers: The Last Night as well. We're talking about Isabella Merced. She also went by Isabella Moner before and has recently officially.
If it's the same one I'm thinking of, I think she also did a show on Netflix that my kid loves.
Possibly. She's done a lot of television as well, including a lot of Disney stuff and possibly Netflix as well. So it's very likely.
Yeah. No, I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
She's good.
Great actress, and I think is the right age difference where she's young enough that Jack would be like, no, you're great, but like, whoa, no, I'm not a big creep. Yeah. And I want that contrast because the Lord of Darkness is like hitting on not illegal Lily, but like newly 18 Lily, like 19-year-old Lily. And this is like a land developer dude. So Blix is also the right hand Blix is the right hand of the Lord of Darkness. That's going to be the brother of the developer. That's basically like the fucking, the mercenary, the minion that goes out and does stuff.
Right. He's the Smithers.
And so I want to explain who the Lord of Darkness is for you to understand why I chose Blix. The Lord of Darkness, I went with somebody that has done some fun roles, but normally is known as very serious and intense with his acting. Michael Shannon as the Lord of Darkness.
Huh.
In this gritty kind of role, but he's also done some wacky-do stuff here and there that I think if he went big in the fantasy lens, when he has the horns and he's doing big, he could get into that too.
Yeah, that's not a bad pick. I mean, it's that unconventional thing that just works.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it would just work. It's like those pieces fit together. It's like, you chose who? And it's like, oh, fuck. Well, now I can't imagine anyone else. I think he could do that.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of range.
And I want this to have that timeless element where this could be set in the 1940s or modern time.
Yeah.
Because it's, broken down ranches in the American Midwest, so that can totally be just of any era vibe to it. It could be the 40s, the 60s, modern day. And he has such a classic kind of approach to his character roles that, like, from Shape of Water to his more modern roles, that he can be that guy in any era.
Yeah, no, he definitely can be.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then so I thought, as far as both looks and I think the right tone for the right-hand man that's a little bit more shit-talky and isn't as motivated as the leader, I went with, for Blix, Jack Quaid.
Jack Quaid, is that...
He's Wee Huey in the Boys series. He's...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I could see, yeah. He would be a good, like sniveling little, yes, no, master.
But also just like, oh, God, I don't... Like, to the other guys being like, I don't want to do this, man.
Yeah.
Like, oh, just
like,
getting pushed further than he wants to go.
Can I really not? Fine.
Yeah.
And then blow someone's head off. It's like, I didn't want to do it. Can we go get somebody to eat?
Yeah. That kind of vibe. Just not in for... He doesn't have the same reasons that he's doing this. He's doing this because he kind of has to.
Yeah.
And that I could see Jack Quaid totally playing in that space. He's been in The Boys. Actually really fun romantic comedy called Plus One. That's worth a look. It's on Hulu, I believe. And then Hunger Games. He was in Rampage as well. So
what was he in? I don't remember him in Rampage, or I don't remember him any of them. That's probably how good he is.
Yeah, that's how good he is, that he just blends into the film.
He just blends into everything he does.
So that's my casting for my reality-based,
that was good,
fantasy-focused version of this.
Yeah, we got some dark shit.
Yeah, dark shit. But
Yeah.
the legend lends to it, I think.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like it. The original movie relies heavily, even though it shows like mythical creatures and they're out in the forest and doing this. It relies heavily on that dark factor and that practical sort of dark factor, and like what happens when you're in a room losing light. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
You kind of panic.
But now we're getting into the weird shit.
Oh, yes.
Which we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on who we cast necessarily.
And I know that we're running low on time, so I'm going to do mine super quick.
Once I announce the director, you could probably fill in the blanks on who I cast for the different stuff.
All right. So you're going to, and I'm sure I'm going to torture his name, but I think it's Ruben Fleischer. And he directed Zombieland 1 and 2.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
I love both of them. Obviously, the first one's better than the last, but the last one's still pretty damn good. And I enjoyed his style of quick-witted sort of humor within a dark fucking action setting.
Yeah.
And I know that Tim Miller hits on that too, but Tim Miller was about being a balance. He is about being fucking weird and funny.
Goofy, yeah.
Yeah, just those fucking great ad-libs and things like that, which I really enjoy about those movies. It's just the way that they show relationships between people.
Sure.
It's so nonchalant and they still give a shit.
Yeah.
So he's my director. And then for my cast, I'll go through it real quick. Jack is Tom Holland, because I actually think that kid is pretty damn funny when he wants to be.
Sure.
And I've seen him on a lot of shit. Like, he's a good ad-libber. He's good. He's a comedian. Some could say he could work in the serious version. Yeah, but maybe. But he just has that, like, that sort of, like, good, goofy kid, innocence, but I'll still, do a flip.
Yeah, the same.
Run up the ball.
The same kind of stuff that made him the clear choice for Spider-Man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But, he's done a couple other things. There's a great movie on Netflix. I'm trying to remember the name. Where I think it's set more in like the 20s or 30s. It's a really dark film.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And I really wish I meant to write it down. I didn't. I apologize. Go check it out.
The devil.
Yes, the devil. The devil we know may be it. I don't know. Go check it out. Just type in Tom Holland. It'll pull up. So he does dark really well. But the funny thing, I think, as far as the movie goes, he works perfectly because he can just kind of ride that shit.
Sure. And
still be watchable.
Yeah.
For Lily, and I don't know if you know who this is, but is Haley Orania. So I'm torturing her name. She plays the oldest sister on the Goldbergs.
Okay.
Besides, she's obviously very attractive. She's very musical, so there will be some singing. Frolicking through the scene.
Sure.
But she's also fucking hysterical. And she's very comes across as a very tough. She can do very tough and innocent at the same time.
Sure.
Which is perfect for Lily in the funny version, because in the funny version, she's more like yes, I am innocent, but if you come too close, I'm going to kick you in your fucking throat. Like,
Yeah.
she just doesn't mess around, which is
Yeah.
funny to me when you come across like someone with Tom Holland who's just this kind of sweet street kid who he'll fight a bunch of people, but when he comes across her, it's like, oh, okay, I'm
Nope.
sorry, my
Yeah,
balls shrunk.
right.
For Screwball, which I did the same thing before. So for Screwball, which is my favorite characters, is Seth Rogen. Because I just think, even if they do animatronic, even if Ruben does animatronic and they just do Seth Rogen's voice, it's still perfect.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen Paul, watch Paul.
Paul is so much fun.
It's an offbeat, fucking amazing movie. It really will take you by surprise. If you sit there and really just enjoy it, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's not the greatest movie ever, but it's so good.
It's
so I
fun.
think, yeah, so Seth Rogen would be good with that. And for The Darkness, this is where I switched it from Jim Carrey originally, Nick Offerman.
Okay.
If I could see...
He has to keep the mustache, though.
Well, that's the thing. Imagine I fucking literally thought the same thing. Imagine the mustache on the devil suit.
100%.
On the devil suit while he's speaking like similar to Ron Swanson, because that's basically his voice.
What is the light without the dark? Just
and Jack's like,
fucking...
and Jack's like, you're evil, and you just hear Nick Offerman or the darkness go, I know what I'm about, son. That's what you call a steak. Like I really wish I could do his impression, but I just imagine him.
You may have heard, I want a lot of darkness. No, I want all the darkness you have.
Yes. Yeah. And then he just does that head tilt and that like he heard me. Like I think it would be one of those choices where if he was in that makeup with the mustache, which is like the first thing I pictured with him doing it, would just be phenomenal.
And what I like about this is in my head, like the practical effects are good. Don't get me wrong. It's not like paper mache shit on there or anything.
Right.
But it's something about that mustache that makes it look like there's so much time and attention paid to it that didn't pay off because of the mustache that he looks like he's wearing a costume.
Yeah.
And which makes it so much more fun for me.
And besides Ron Swanson and what Magnum PI,
fucking Tom Selleck.
Tom Selleck, thank you. Besides those two, a mustache is kind of seen as like you're a creepy motherfucker.
Yeah, right.
So he so pulls it off without makeup. To think of him pulling it off in a fucking darkness makeup setting, and he's in this, his own darkness labyrinth where he fucking rules over, and all he wants is like steaks. Fruits are considered basically you can die if you bring him a fruit.
Sure,
you'll cut him in half. Like just very serious. Like I know what I'm about, son. Get me that fucking unicorn. Yeah. Although in my movie, and I told you this earlier, and I can't. I've been waiting to say this. In my funny version, instead of a unicorn horn, there's actually an object buried underneath the tree, essentially the tree of life, the very first tree.
Sure.
And buried underneath there is a golden rod, which affectionately becomes known as the golden dildo, the spark of life.
Jesus. So it's this like tree dick, this golden tree dick that they have to transport.
That's right, son.
That's fantastic.
That's right. I know what I'm about. And of course it gets found, it gets taken, and it gets Nick Offerman. That's his ultimate prize. He wants that golden dildo because he finds it ridiculous that any of this exists. So he just needs to get rid of it. It's not
sure.
Simple. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay. It's all fucking pointless.
That's perfect. I love it. For mine, I have done this before in a couple episodes, but I thought if you were to approach this as a money grab producer, that was like, what do we have in the bin that hasn't been remade recently? Okay, dig through, and you're like, okay, Legend. Yeah, there's some nerds that like this, so we'll have to throw a couple Easter eggs in for them to like, but otherwise, fuck it, let's do this. It's just by the name, there will be parents that will bring their kids to it to watch it. Fuck it. All right, so this is a weird fantasy movie. There's some fucking whoop-de-doo, fucking good and evil bullshit that happens. Who do we have? Who's a weird director? And then just go down to the cafeteria and look at who's eating in there. That's like one of their directors that they have on fucking call. And in the back, like looking over his journal and reading copies of Johnny the Homicidal Maniac is fucking Tim Burton. That's sitting there like, yes. And they're like, do you want to do Legend? And it's like, can Johnny be in it? And they're like, yeah, fuck, yeah, fine, that's fine. And then, okay, I'll do it. And then he just comes in onto the set and starts doing it.
Perfect.
And you can pretty much write this of just like super zany, slightly dark. And that's the thing. That's why I make fun of Tim Burton now, is that he went more and more zany and less that nice balance of creepy and fun.
Yeah.
That his earlier movies had. Edward Scissorhands, Beetlejuice. I mean,
he must have been taking antidepressants.
yeah, there was a point where you're getting to like Willy Wonka and it's just all zany, but there's not that, like, besides Wonka coming off as a fucking pedophile.
Yes.
There's no
100%.
real 100%. There is no real actual that like knowable darkness that everybody kind of feels when they're an angsty teenager that just kind of gets plastered over as a nice veneer
Right.
over everything. And so he's just known as that guy that does that, but he doesn't even really do that anymore. So instead you get Dumbo. Woo, yeah, creepy. And so we've got Tim Burton, and so I'm just going to shoot down. So there's going to be either weird looking or like alternative actors, quote unquote, the ones that will take some like weird roles. I like being a weird person in a movie kind of characters, or they just look strange, or both in this. So and also working with him. So first off, the Lord of Darkness, I'm doing a gender swap on this one. And from Miss Peregrine, and she was also in the Dumbo movie as well. Eva Green is going to be the Lord of Darkness.
Oh, yeah.
She's got some goth vibes to her. So,
oh, dude, that is Rise of Empire.
Rise of Empire, and she was also in Penny Dreadful as well.
She's awesome.
Awesome in Penny Dreadful, yeah. So that would be a very fun turn for Lord of Darkness.
Oh,
her.
yeah. Oh, that costume would probably be more aesthetically pleasing.
It would be
at least
lovely. That would be the only thing that I'd be like, you know what? I like that note. Everything else kind of sucks in this version.
Yes.
But
fuck off, Offerman.
then we got for Jack, you want an innocent that, you know, fucking, woo, fucking, I'm innocent. I'm going to save the girl. That kind of vibe. You can tell how much I'm taking this seriously. Then from Miss Peregrine, so worked with Burton before, Asa Butterfield. He's been in a bunch of stuff. That
name sounds so familiar.
He was Ender in Ender's Game.
Oh, yes.
He's been in a
By the way, Ender's
things.
Game is underrated. Just saying.
I feel like it missed the spirit of the book a little bit.
For sure. But as far as the movie goes.
It's not a bad movie. It's just, it doesn't have the heart that, unfortunately, Orson Scott Card doesn't have either.
I was going to say.
A fucking monster. but the book is good.
Yeah. Destroy civilizations.
If you want a book of his that is counter to everything he believes in, Speaker for the Dead, which is the sequel to Ender's Game, is all about like understanding and tolerance and inclusion, which is, you know, not Orson Scott Card. So that's cool.
No, and I haven't read
weird.
that. So now I've heard of it, but
good.
I haven't. Yeah.
I have a copy, so you don't have
can
to.
I borrow it?
Yes, you don't have to give money to him at all. You can just borrow my copy.
Good. I'm reading Ready Player 2 right now, and I had to stop reading it
Okay.
because I'm halfway through, and I don't want to get to the end yet.
No, fair. All right, so for Lily, this is full on weird looking. She might have been in a Burton film. Elle Fanning.
Oh yeah. Dakota Fanning's sister.
Yes.
She was in Super 8.
Yeah, she was in Super 8. And great actress. I don't want to detract from the fact that she's actually a very accomplished, very good actress.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But she's also that like kind of creepy vibe to her a little bit as well. So just kind of like, ooh, there's something about me. Mm-hmm. Kind of the
offbeat
Winona Ryder and Beetlejuice kind of vibe that she's throwing out a little bit. Yeah. So I think that's great for Lily. Then Gump, the sidekick, that's the fucking weirdo, because I did the swap, and Johnny Depp initially was my Lord of Darkness, but he would end up in a pinstripe business suit with fucking horns that he kept like plucking off or something. I didn't want to be too fucking weird. So Johnny Depp is Gump. So you put him in like a fucking
that sort of side piece role.
Yeah, side role where he can just be the fucking boop-a-doo weirdo sidekick character. And then he just gets all fucking weird and zany. Yeah, cool. Good. Fuck it. Why not? Then Una, the like sprite that's like in love with Asa Butterfield. We're doing Maisie Williams, who I love from Game of Thrones, and
Maisie Williams. Yeah, she's good. She was in the New
Mutants.
I can't even speak.
Yeah,
New
Mutants.
Mutants.
And though that film wasn't great, it wasn't
fine.
because of her. She was fine. And then we've got Blix, the sidekick character to the Lord of Darkness, and having worked with Tim Burton a number of times, including Dumbo and Batman Returns, we've got one Danny DeVito as Blix.
I thought you were going to say Helena Bonham Carter.
No, Helena, I did not cast her in this, but if there was a role for her, it would be Lily's adoptive mother.
Oh, the one in the house.
The one in the house
yeah.
that you could totally just have her, because she's got to be in there somewhere.
Yeah, she'll just replay the witch from Big Fish.
Yep, and that's Lily's mom is the witch from Big Fish, and then you're good to go.
That's awesome.
So perfect.
That's
so
perfect.
That is my Tim Burton Legend.
I love it.
Version.
Yeah, that's very Tim Burton, and he would have all those people in there.
If I pitched that to producers and Tim Burton, they'd be like, "Fucking sold! Let's do this, motherfucker!"
Yeah.
They'd be ready to roll.
Well,
brilliant. And I'm just like, I don't know, fucking Asa Butterfield and Elle Fanning. They're like, fucking, they both look weird. Put them in. Just ready.
Give it a couple of years, we start seeing shit pop up on the like. Hey, by the way, new movie coming up. Like, what the fuck?
Right.
Well, we didn't copyright shit.
No shit. Speaking of, I mention this regularly on the show. If any of the ideas we come up with ends up getting used, the best way to avoid any kind of litigation is to just give us fucking credit. It's something I can put on the resume and possibly get my foot in the door on script writing. So fucking just go for this shit.
I mean, you could pay too.
Yeah, I mean,
whatever works.
Paying is also preferable.
But credit, if that's the least you can do, that's fine.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah.
Right.
We got to pay this guy scale for coming up with a thing that's going to make us $100 million. Well, I guess we'll just throw out fucking 10 grand. That's fine. Whatever. It's fine.
Fuck it.
We're giving away
leeches.
Gold on this show.
Suck it up, you sons of bitches.
So now we are, there weren't a lot of mashups that I got shot. I very late on the game, put on social media for mashups, but do you have anything that you'd like to mash up with Legend?
If I had to mash up anything specific with Legend in terms, I would do it in terms of contrast.
Sure.
Just to have two conflicting worlds. So I would probably have the Guyver and Legend. And the reason and I would have that contrast because I would like to have, for no reason whatsoever, and I've had 5 beers, is just to have the alien aspect in it, because the Guyver is about an alien armor that somehow is biological and makes its way onto a good guy who then fights against other aliens who are more like dinosaurs, who are trying to take over the world. So I would definitely think that I would, if I was drunk, and probably on a lot of different medications and writing a script, that's what I would combine.
My combination is actually multiple movies to combine into the actual story of Legend. Is that the part of an adventure fantasy movie that's normally the most exciting part is the least exciting for the most part in Legend, and that's the journey to save the girl and the unicorn.
Right.
Where they run into like the goblin witch. They're like, oh, if I can cut her head off. Anyway, moving on. And there's just like,
we're in a swamp.
Yeah, we're in a swamp now.
Yeah.
Anyway, now we're not. It's just, it's not that exciting. So you make that a little bit more of a presence in the movie. And then you incorporate people on other quests that they just run across. So they're not joining in to help save the day. They've got their own shit. So you got Monty Python and the Holy Grail. They just run across people with fucking coconuts that are just like galloping past, and they just like talk for a minute. You've got Your Highness mixing in there for no reason.
Natalie Portman just randomly there.
You got, they
Danny
just walk
McBride.
by and there's like a dude that looks like David Bowie singing about babies.
You know what's
that's
funny?
Just off on a cliff somewhere with like little fucking puppets dancing around him.
If you're making this movie, and if we're making this movie,
yeah,
I picture that also in the background randomly is like an RPG game or online role-playing game where characters are, nobody's controlling them at the time, so they're just standing there doing their thing. While randomly Monty Python characters are over here and maybe over that, and just have chaos. So in the background, it's not noticeable unless you were really looking.
Yeah.
But all you see is these characters maybe just dancing in place. No reason.
Nothing.
Maybe bumping into each other because the controller's stuck.
Right. I also want like where they're passing a bridge like in Monty Python, and instead of the dudes, these questions 3, it's just Gandalf being like, you shall not pass. And then one of them just holds up a literal pass that said shall pass on it. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Right.
I've
had it validated.
Yeah.
Thank you. The amount of money that it would cost to get the rights to do a movie like that would be like Ready Player One times a million.
That's why this is a fun sandbox to live in, because it's not going to happen anyway. So why not just fucking be weird with it?
Well, Spielberg could make it happen.
Spielberg can make anything happen.
Yeah. He pulled it all. He's pulled it all together for Ready Player One, and that was a lot of fucking licenses.
Oh yeah, for sure.
A lot.
So those are our mashups for this one. Last thing before we finish here are our trailers.
I think I'm going to take this one first. Let's end this one off strong. So
Okay.
It's better that you go last.
Okay. No, that's fine. All right. Here we go.
In a world where darkness has taken over the city that connects all of the realms of Earth and beyond, the mythical golden dildo was stolen from under the oldest tree on Earth, the tree of life. It is up to one hero, Jack, to retrieve the golden dildo and return it under the big thick tree.
Jesus.
As he goes to this world, he meets Lily, an innocent who he falls in love with. And between Jack and Lily, they can overtake the darkness that is Nick Offerman, as he ends his reign with, I know what I'm about, son. Check us. Check it out. This summer, 2022. Legend.
It was better
Lovely.
It was better than my other ones.
I know what I'm about, son. You just had to throw that line in there.
It's one of the greatest lines ever.
That's great.
I know what I'm about, son.
Jesus Christ. Cool. So that's all right. I'm trying to remember what track mine was.
From the mind of the director of Beasts of the Southern Wild and Wendy comes a tour de force of fantasy set in the American Southwest. Jack and Lily are new adults that are trying to find their way in the world and their way in love when a terrible landowner tries to take the last chances of the ranch away by stealing one of the prize horses. Sometimes reality is far darker than any fantasy can give you, but through the lens of their countless stories they tell each other, they traverse the American Southwest in a last-ditch effort to recover the lost horse and their innocence. This summer comes a new take on a classic tale. There are many people in the world, but few become legend.
I didn't even talk about the actors or the character. Like,
What happened? I was transported to somewhere else.
I blacked out for a second. What happened?
I want to be legend now.
I want to be legend too. We are legends in our own mind, and that what makes us podcasters, honestly.
God, I don't think you could do it. Unless you...
Yeah, right. So thank you for listening to our nonsense for another episode of Smack My Pitch Up. This has been so much fun exploring what worked and clearly doesn't work for a remake of Legend. And I want to hear what you guys think about casting or choices as far as a remake, reimagining, sequel of Legend. Hit us up on social media. All those links and ways to subscribe are all at GUIPodcast.com. Definitely check out Geekfathers.
Yeah. We're coming up.
You are coming up. It's you and Scotty P doing the thing, talking about geek parenting.
Yeah. Geek parenting and all that comes along with it.
Which is I think, just not a lot of sleep. I think is mostly
sleep. You know, your nerves are always fried, but you know, there's a lot of love.
Depleted bank account.
Depleted bank accounts. Let's focus on the positive. There's a lot of love.
No, for sure.
We love them. We love them.
Yeah, most of the time.
Most of the time.
Yeah. So check out Geekfathers on GUIPodcast.com. Rate, review, subscribe. We'll find you next time. Make sure to check out TeePublic. We've got some new designs out right now, including the new Geekfathers t-shirt.
That's right.
Which I'm excited. It has your goofy fucking face on it now.
It's the only difference is my headphones aren't on my head. Otherwise, we look the exact same. Just a bunch of fat-faced, bald white men with beards.
Yay! Exciting.
Geekfathers!
That should be the name of the network. No, I'm kidding.
I think our stock would plummet.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
It's a family.
It's a family. More like a life raft. So thank you so much for listening. I shouldn't have said that when you're taking a drink. Thank you so much for listening. We'll find you next time. You just got pitch smacked.
GUIPodcast.com.
Yes? Can Johnny be in it? Okay, I'll do it.
Hey guys, Scotty Big Daddy Preston here. That's right, the Geek Father, asking you to join me here every other week with friends and family of the GUI Network as we go through all the trials and tribulations of being a geeky parent. So remember, join us or cry.
My name is Amy Bogard.
And I'm Mike the Hobbit.
And we are the hosts of Deeply Upsetting, where we use our expertise to answer your most upsetting hypothetical quandaries, such as, what non-winged animal deserves wings?
And what body part deserves a secret mouth?
Which cryptid is the worst roommate?
These questions and more that plague you will be answered on Deeply Upsetting, available anywhere you get your podcasts and at GUIPodcast.com.